It's deja vu all over again. The Bills beating the Chiefs during the regular season. What do you know? 28-21 the final. I'm Kevin Carroll. This is the Buffalo End Zone Podcast.
And we are proudly presented by Toyota. I am Andy Young, and this, Kevin, was the Bills' most complete effort of the season, and it came against a team that many observers thought was playing the best football of anyone in the NFL coming into this one.
It's funny, if I told you once the Bills lost 2 games in a row to calm down, everything's going to be all right, like it always is with the Bills after they stubbed their toe to start this or early in the season, you would have told me I was crazy. I would have told me I was crazy. But here we are once again. The Bills come back from their bye week. They handle Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers. Big deal. Although the Panthers just went in and beat the Green Bay Packers on their home field. But to do it against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, a team that was red hot going into this one, you breathe a sigh of relief, Andy. All seems right now with a decent chunk of games left in the regular season.
Yeah, this was absolutely a huge victory for the Bills. You and I have talked and joked about call us in January. Oh, hum ho, you beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Oh, well. This was a massive game for both teams because both teams were in a spot that we haven't seen them in over the course of their 10-game rivalry since 2020. Both teams not in first place in their division. Chiefs actually in third coming in. Bills scratching and clawing. I'll get that out. Scratching and clawing to keep pace with the New England Patriots in the AFC East. So the winner in a much better spot than the loser. Chiefs now have 4 losses on the season. Bills right there with the rest of the teams in the AFC that have 2 losses and chasing that 1 seed. So the division remains open for the Bills. The 1 seed remains open for the Bills. They'll play the Patriots again, and you just keep on rolling here. This was a really impressive performance by this Bills team, especially given the level of competition that they faced.
Yeah, with the game later on in the day, Patriots get the win over the Falcons, and that was a crazy finish to that game. So there you needed, as part of Bills Mafia, you needed your team to win to keep pace. Then you also pile on top of that the Indianapolis Colts pick up their second loss of the season. And there you are, knowing before this game even started that if you go out there and put together a good performance, you're right in the mix. And that's exactly what they did. Offense, defense, Josh Allen, James Cook, pass rush, defensive back play. Andy, I can't go any further without talking about Maxwell Hairston. And the speed showed up in this game. Interception towards the end to kind of help seal the deal. It still got a little dicey towards the end there. But we talked to him before the game about maybe being matched up with James Worthy, speed on speed. And we saw both of them flying down the field. And sure enough, Max Hairston matching speed on speed.
If he was matched up with James Worthy, maybe we'll go back in a time machine.
Oh, James Worthy.
The Los Angeles Lakers. Kevin, that's one of the best ones. Like, you do this all the time. And that was one of the best ones you've ever had. Hey, Lake Show. It was Bird versus Magic. No, it was Mahomes versus Allen in this one. Xavier Worthy, who set the NFL record for the fastest combine time ever. Fastest guy in the 40-yard dash. Of course, Maxwell Hairston, the fastest guy in this season's 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine, and you could just see the speed on display. There was a deep ball down the field to Xavier Worthy, and Maxwell Hairston was with him step for step right there, and it went for an incompletion. And Worthy has been a really big threat, right, down the field with his speed and athleticism. And look, the Bills finally have a guy that can match that. He didn't play every series. He still split some reps with Tre'Davious White, and that's probably a good thing as they kind of ease Maxwell Hairston into his role. But the stage is not too big for Maxwell Hairston at all. He talked about maybe wanting to get an interception of Patrick Mahomes. That would be his first career interception in the NFL. Well, guess what? Dude just went out there and did it. And it was really interesting to hear from him after the game on his interception, where he said they looked like they were in press man coverage, and then they backed off into zone, and Hairston was down there in the right spot and made the play, and that was a huge play in this game. You're right. It got a little dicey at the end there, but that interception was massive to keep the Chiefs at bay when they're down just a score.
We'll get to Josh Allen in the offense in a little bit, but I just want to talk about this defense and what they were able to do to Patrick Mahomes throughout the game. They
Yeah.
frustrated him. There was pressure from the line. There were sacks because the coverage downfield was so good, Mahomes couldn't do anything about it. You have Cole Bishop, who has taken so much heat this year, come up with two huge plays in this game, 4 total pass breakups, 2 of them coming at key moments in this game.
Yeah, back-to-back plays for Cole Bishop there on a 3rd down and a 4th down. Also had the big hit on Travis Kelce on a play down there in the end zone. This was Cole Bishop's best game by far in the NFL. He was noticeable all over the football field, flying around, making big plays, making tackles. Was it perfect by any means? No, but this is the kind of play you need, the athleticism, the big play ability, the ability to break up passes that the Bills have struggled with so much this season. Bishop went out there and had the best game of his career against the best quarterback maybe ever in Patrick Mahomes. And the Bills, both parts of the defense, right? The pass rush married to the defensive back play, they held Patrick Mahomes to 15 of 34, 44% completion percentage roughly. That's the worst of his career. He didn't have a touchdown pass in this game. They got the interception. I believe his passer rating was 57.1. Yeah, he made some big plays. Yeah, there were times where there was busted coverage and a couple of 4th downs or 3rd downs that you want to have when it's key moments in the game, but the way that they were able to get after him, make him uncomfortable, sack him a few times, keep him from running, right? He had been such a threat this season to run. Like we see him in the playoffs. He'd been doing that throughout the regular season this year at a higher clip than maybe he ever has, and I don't think he had any rushing yards in this game. So kudos to the Bills defense with Sean McDermott, Bobby Babich working on the play calling duties, and then the players on the field did a tremendous job in making life really difficult for Patrick Mahomes all day long.
Yeah, but it was funny. On occasion, Mahomes did what Mahomes does, and the Bills' defense did what they do. Like you said, on 3rd and long and 4th and 17, Andy. I was joking
you just
around
can't have that.
with Stevie Johnson during our post-game show while you were in the locker room. This looked like this was going to become another game with a name to it. 4th and 17. You had him. We were joking around. Joey Bosa freaked himself out or faked himself out because there was no one blocking him. He thought he screwed up and kind of dropped back into coverage for a second. He had a beeline to Mahomes on there. If he just plays that straight up, we're not talking about it. But this was a game where the Bills were able to overcome mistakes like that, Andy. And you had Joey Bosa with actually a game where you were sitting there saying, this is why Joey Bosa was brought here, right? To be able to deliver when need be. And I mean, the defensive line did for the most part throughout the entire game, but Bosa was noticeable in this.
Yeah, they had a 3rd and long at one point, and Mahomes was able to find Travis Kelce for 28 yards, the 4th and 17. Deep ball to Rashee Rice, who had a nice game against them overall. But you can't have those kinds of plays. But like you said, they did so much good in this game, especially as maligned as this defense had been all season long. The struggles that we saw against Atlanta and New England, trouble stopping Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But look, they made plays all day long, and that this looked like a defense from a few years ago, right? When the Bills were like a top 5 defense, and they'd create pressure and turnovers and all these different things. And it was really nice to see because they're going to need that down the stretch to be the caliber of team they want to be, right? We've talked so many times in elimination games in the playoffs. What has failed them most? It's been the defense, especially against the Chiefs, who've scored 34 points or whatever it is a game. Now, look, it's the regular season. I get it. They have beaten the Chiefs 5 straight times in the regular season. So we've seen this movie before. But given where they were in the season a couple of weeks ago, coming out of that bye, to come out and just lay waste to Andy Dalton and make him look like he never played football in his life, and then to really make Mahomes look human, that's a promising sign for this Bills defense.
Yeah, and the tough part is, Andy, and I had a note at some point early in the second half that I haven't noticed Michael Hoecht throughout the game. And then I started noticing him. And then unfortunately, and this looks really bad, it looks like a ruptured Achilles, non-contact injury. The dude just got back, was just out there a game and 3/4 maybe in this, but he's done for the season at this point. And he was really looking to be a key part of that defensive line.
Yeah, it's a really unfortunate injury for the Bills. Just gets back from his suspension, plays 2 games, gets a couple of sacks, has been a real nice spark, a versatile piece, smart, high motor. Really looked like he brought some juice to this Bills defense, some attitude and some toughness. And for him to go out with a ruptured Achilles, it's just a really unfortunate thing for this Bills team that has struggled with injuries in the defensive backfield, at the linebacker level, and at defensive line all season long. So that's a really tough blow for them. I saw him walking around afterwards, coming out of the locker room, crutches, walking boot, obviously torn Achilles, going to be done for the year. So the Bills are going to have to regroup because he had provided a lift for this defense and provided a spark that they really needed, because that defense was horrific against Atlanta. And you saw it right away, just the energy and the spark that he brought. Pretty cool of him to tear his Achilles. Cart comes out for him, and he shoves the cart away. He says, no, I don't want to. I want to watch the rest of the game on the sideline with my teammates. That's gutsy, man, even if you can't play. So, unfortunate for that guy. I think by all accounts, he's a pretty good guy, and teammates really loved him. So it's a big loss for them, for a guy that had only really played a game and a half.
Yeah, stayed on the sideline, cheered his guys on, and there's no doubt about it. He was that guy who brought life to the defense, who had been so down in the dumps after 2 games. But it is what it is at this point, Andy. The trade deadline is coming up. We'll see what the Bills do. A lot of talk about what they should be doing going into this. With Ed Oliver's injury, do we need to focus on the defensive line? And now this happens, and it's almost like that's the glaring issue right now, probably moving forward.
Yeah, they may need to take a look at adding through the trade with Brandon Beane and the trade deadline coming up on Tuesday. I mean, you're talking about Ed Oliver potentially being – there was a report from, I think, Ian Rappaport from NFL Network that Oliver could be back for the first round or the second round of the playoffs, but that's a long way out, and with a torn biceps injury, you never know there. That's tough to come back from that quickly. And then, TJ Sanders, we saw him kind of walking around at practice the other day, but he has been on an injured reserve. Daquan Jones didn't play in this game with the calf issue. Good thing at defensive end, at least, there is some depth there. I don't think it's the caliber of Michael Hoecht, but you do have Javon Solomon, and you do have Landon Jackson, the rookie, who really hasn't done a whole lot and has struggled even to get a jersey for game days. But, I mean, they may have to bring him up and use him and get more out of that guy. So defensive line is one of those spots where if they can trade for a tackle, or maybe they can find a defensive end or a tweener type guy like Hoyt is that can play both defensive end and kick inside to tackle on passing downs, Beane's going to have to explore that.
Before we switch to the offense, I want to give a little shout out to Jordan Hancock at the end of the game. He's a rookie. Andy, you got a Hail Mary coming your way. You would think, as most rookies would be like, this is my chance to be a hero and intercept it. But he followed his coaching and just batted the ball to the ground. And for a rookie to be put in that position, and we've seen Hancock rotate in and out with Jordan Poyer, it was a pretty good way to end the game with all the stars that were on defense that delivered.
Yeah, I've liked what the Bills have done with Jordan Hancock and Maxwell Hairston as well, in kind of rotating these guys in and out. And the Bills not necessarily being married to keeping the same 11 guys on the field all the time. I know they rotate their defensive line a lot, but for most of Sean McDermott's tenure, linebackers and safeties and corners kind of just stayed on the field. If you were a starter, you stayed on the field the whole time. They're doing some different things with dime looks, getting Cam Lewis involved. I thought he played pretty well with Taron Johnson out for this game. I thought Jamarcus Ingram had some key snaps as well. And then, yeah, you're right, Jordan Hancock kind of playing that deep safety look when it's obvious passing situations and Jordan Poyer comes off the field. And the ability to kind of match up and play those kinds of plays, have some more athleticism back there, speed, especially important against a team like this who has speed and droves at the receiver position. So I've kind of liked how they've handled Hancock, and I also like how he's played, right? Is it perfect? No. Are there some plays that he'd like back? Sure. Of course, there was like that one pass right down the middle to Rashee Rice where Cole Bishop, Jordan Hancock, and I think Cam Lewis were all, or maybe it was Ingram, were all kind of like 15 yards away, and nobody really focused on him. It's not going to be perfect, but getting these rookies and these young guys out there, experience, and using their athleticism to their advantage is a big thing for the Bills, especially when coming into this season, McDermott said young guys are going to have to step up because of who we have on this roster right now.
15 minutes in, let's talk about one Josh Allen, the reigning MVP, Andy,
Oh, yeah.
who, following the game against the Panthers a week ago, said he didn't trust his eyes, he didn't trust his feet. He looked way more comfortable in this win over the Chiefs than we've seen him probably since the win over the Ravens back in week 1, it looked to me. Allen with a touchdown through the air, 2 rushing touchdowns. I think I heard he passed Earl Campbell on the rushing touchdown list.
I think he's 26th all time. That's insane for a quarterback.
Right, which is crazy. And
he passed Cam Newton for the most quarterback rushing touchdowns of all time now.
And I think he passed Cam Newton and Patrick Mahomes on most touchdowns.
That's crazy, isn't it?
I mean, it's incredible for how dire things looked a few weeks ago. Josh Allen looked in control. The team wants this balanced offense between passing and running. I thought James Cook looked all the part early. I'll give the Chiefs credit for making adjustments in the second half. But even with the adjustments, James Cook was still getting his here and there. So you have a Allen focused and you have James Cook, and we saw Ty Johnson get into the mix a little more too.
Yeah, Josh Allen, 23 of 26, 273 yards, no interceptions, touchdown through the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and that 23 of 26, 88.5% completion percentage. We talked about Patrick Mahomes having the lowest of his career. Josh Allen had the highest of his career and set a new franchise record for completion percentage. I mean, just an incredibly efficient performance. Looked comfortable back there almost all day long. Chiefs got to him a couple of times. That's going to happen, especially with a good defense. But Allen looked so much more comfortable, able to just drop back and make a throw, right? Not just instantly leave the pocket. I think he did a good job of kind of staying in the pocket, and when it was warranted, he would leak out and make a big play. You saw him hit big plays down the field to Dalton Kincaid, to Dawson Knox. He got one to Elijah Moore. The flip to Jackson Hawes for an 18-yard
I
gain.
forgot about that one, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great play. That was a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. We only know 2 guys that can make these kinds of plays, and they were both in this game. But Allen by far outplayed Patrick Mahomes, and that doesn't often happen in these 2 matchups. Sometimes it's close, right? Like one slightly better than the other, or they both play great. Allen soundly outplayed Patrick Mahomes in this one.
Allen, too, we talked about this. There wasn't a ton of it at all. But that design run for Allen when they really needed it, such a good call. Right place, right time to get the first down.
Yeah, we've been asking for that. There was a few different things fans have been talking about and saying, where is this? Well, one of them was a design quarterback run. He hadn't been running a lot. And guess what? Picks up 11 yards and a first down in a key spot on a quarterback run. We talked about, hey, where's James Cook on third downs? Well, when it's late in the game, right, and it's 3rd and 3, I think they throw a pass to James Cook on third down, and he's actually on the field instead of Ty Johnson.
Right.
And what happens? They pick up the first down in a key spot. That's the kind of stuff you need. Like, I'm not advocating for James Cook being on the field every third down because they like Ty Johnson, and obviously he got involved in this game and did some nice things. Finally, they unlocked him a little bit again. I just thought there was a lot to like offensively. Was it a great outside wide receiver performance game? No, but they did enough to keep the guys in the mix, to keep the Chiefs honest that there was some threat out there for their wide receivers. Could they still upgrade that position? Sure. But I think at least for this game, everybody eats or at least gets a nibble was back. And I said it on the post-game show that the buffet was back open and some guys did eat. Dalton Kincaid obviously has been really fantastic.
Yeah, you got to figure with the way the AFC Championship game ended, Dalton Kincaid was probably chomping at the bit to get out there and put together a performance, and he did that touchdown early and then that monster reception later. And Andy, you mentioned Elijah Moore with the reception downfield. That was one of the coolest throws I've seen with two defenders around Elijah Moore. The fact that Allen fit it in there and the fact that Moore was able to come up with the grab, just another sign of how things maybe are starting to develop with the passing game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Shakir has a really nice game and gets involved a few different times here. I just think that it's never going to be, and we saw this last year when everybody eats was flying high, right? That it's rare that like an outside receiver is just going to put up yards and yards and yards and be like Jamar Chase or CeeDee Lamb or one of these Justin Jefferson and just go off. That's not going to happen. That's not who they are athletically. That's not the type of offense they run, but they need the threat, right? They need guys to make big plays sometimes. Doesn't have to be every game 150 yards, but to have the ability to take the top off a little bit, to hit intermediate throws, to get 18 and 20-yard chunk plays, that you have to have that, especially when the ground game is so relied upon by this Bills offense that if the Chiefs or whomever slow that down, and the Chiefs did a good job in the second half of kind of slowing Cook down, even though he still goes over 100 yards again. You got to have other options and other threats. And I think for a lot of this game, the Bills did some good things in the passing game to get a lot of guys involved.
All right, let's talk Keon Coleman, Andy. Taking a lot of heat leading up to this game. Steve Smith, very critical, the former Panthers wide receiver, on the second-year wide receiver's performance and how he looks out there. He had two catches in this game, Andy. One a little slant, one kind of stopping and hanging out around the first down marker that Allen was able to get it to in order to pick up the first down. And I think at this point in Keon's career in the season, that is who he is. Maybe he's a guy who gets you a couple of catches and a couple of first downs at moments during a game, and that's how it's going to be for this season until something changes. Two catches isn't great, but I mean, he was there when needed, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, that's like we've kind of said. Keon Coleman's athletic profile was never going to lead to him being a great separator. And they haven't been throwing him those 50-50 jump balls that had not been 50-50 balls this season for the most part, because that just wasn't there and they didn't need it. There's going to be games where he probably gets 80 yards and a touchdown. There's going to be some red zone stuff to him, but he kind of is who he is. That's why I still think they could use an upgrade at that position. Is it as desperate maybe as some people think? I don't know, but I certainly think there's a case to be made if you can get the right wide receiver in here, if you're Brandon Beane, that you can add to this offense and make it even more dangerous. Keon Coleman in some ways might be miscast in the way they utilize him, right? There's a lot of talk about him being a big slot, but you have Dalton Kincaid in the slot as a big slot as a tight end, and then you have your little slot, which is Shakir, who both had really nice games and are really reliable for Josh Allen. So Coleman does all the right things in terms of the running game, but you know it's kind of a struggle for him right now, catching the football and getting volume, which the Bills don't typically do anyways. So could they use a number one or more speed, whatever? Sure. But for right now, this kind of is who Keon Coleman is.
You and I both talked about and thought that maybe with Gabe Davis now in the practice squad, he might be brought into the mix. Still a possibility with him no longer on the practice squad injured list, but we do have the trade deadline coming up. Can Gabe, when talking to Stevie Johnson on our post-game show, he thinks that eventually Gabe is going to be part of the mix because of Josh Allen's trust in Gabe Davis. But, you know, if you're the Bills, are you like, well, now we got to look at the defensive line and maybe activating Gabe Davis helps. Who knows how it's going to go, but I still think there's going to be a point where Gabe Davis is suiting up for this team.
I mean, I think so. I had thought maybe it would be this week. It turned out he had some inflammation from practice and didn't practice on Friday, so that wasn't going to happen. I do think there will be a time where Gabe Davis gets called up. Look, Gabe Davis is by no means a perfect player, and I don't know. Maybe he's an upgrade over Keon Coleman. I was on another podcast with Patrick Moran on Talking Buffalo last week, and he was kind of listing off Keon Coleman's didn't show up, goose egg type performances, 2 catches, 17 yards, no catches, 1 catch, whatever it is. And I said, you know who that sounds like? It's a couple of years ago was Gabe Davis, where he'd get you 6 for 102 and a touchdown, and then he'd go 3 weeks with 2 catches total, and then he'd get you another 80 yards and a touchdown. It was kind of an inconsistent thing, but I think if he's healthy, I don't see why you wouldn't call him up, especially if this Joshua Palmer injury lingers and you've got an open spot for a receiver. But, I mean, listening to the national reports, it sounds like the Bills have certainly been making calls about wide receivers around the NFL. Sounds like they called on Chris Olave from the Saints, who don't sound too hasty to want to move their number 1 receiver, but maybe it's Shaheed from the Saints as well. I've heard smoke about Jacoby Myers. I mean, dream scenario is somehow you get the Dolphins to say we're going to trade Jalen Waddle, right?
Yeah, that ain't happening.
But why would you do that in your own division again with a player who could be a building block, even though they just fired their GM? But I think there will be hard looks at that. But I think Bean obviously doesn't view it quite as dire as the rest of us might, just given all his comments in the offseason, through training camp, all those sorts of things. So I still think they should. Will they? I'm not 100% sure.
Shaheed, someone that I think could come in and play a role with the Bills. Jacoby Myers, not so much. I heard a couple of things over the weekend that might be the way the Bills are leaning to bring in Jacoby Myers. I saw a report on social media. I don't get that. Jacoby Myers, to me, is just another guy like Elijah Moore, Samuel. That's all.
See, to me, he's more of a slot guy, which bodes even worse. It's the same exact thing. They got a ton of those guys, right?
Right.
Bring in some speed. If you can't get a number 1, at least get some top off kind of speed that you can get guys downfield and give that threat.
Yeah. Before we head out, Andy, should there be some concern about the Bills' special teams right now? I know Prater missed that field goal late in the game, but he's dealing with an injury. But the kick coverage team, it seemed like the Chiefs were easily getting to the 30, if not more, throughout this entire game. And the Bills' kick return isn't that much better anyways.
Yeah, they're not getting a whole lot out of the kicking game right now in terms of changing field position. They're giving up some stuff on kickoff returns. They do fine on punts typically, but they're not breaking out. Brandon Codrington does not play again. He, is inactive for this game, so they use Shakir. In this one, they had Ray Davis and Curtis Samuel back there for kickoffs. Special teams hasn't been great. It hasn't been a huge liability, but, Prater misses a field goal late that could have put that game completely away. And I wonder what's up with Tyler Bass. Is he still injured? Is he still working his way back? He's on IR, right? Mm-hmm. Or are they kind of stashing him there? Is he good to go, and they're just kind of waiting to see what happens with Prater? Prater happens to get hurt, which he was banged up going into this game. or performance struggles. I wonder exactly what the status is. We haven't gotten any great updates or anything new really on Tyler Bass. Sean McDermott was asked about it this week, and he kind of always gives the same, oh, he's doing a good job. He's trying to work his way back. So we'll see. Maybe Bass comes back. But, yeah, special teams have been underwhelming for the Bills for the most part this season.
All right, so Bills with just 2 losses on the season right now. Now 1-2 in a row on the road at Miami coming up next. That usually bodes well for the Bills, and the Dolphins are way down in the dumps this season too. And then a big game against the Buccaneers coming up at home. So the Bills building momentum right now, Andy, and as we've seen in the past, this is kind of their MO.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time where they kind of stumble a little bit. They have these lulls in the season, and it's easy to kind of forget that other teams go through the same things. Like, look, Indianapolis just lost. Detroit lost today, who was been a fantastic team. The Chiefs now have 4 losses, right? Baltimore has had its struggles this season. So, like, it's not unheard of for teams to lose a couple of games and then bounce back. I think it was more about the way the Bills had lost, where they just looked completely inept on offense and their defense was getting rocked, that really concerned people. Like, hey, is this really a Super Bowl contending kind of team? But a performance like this vaults them right back into that conversation to me. And look, they're still 5th in the AFC right now, but the 4 teams ahead of them have 2, and then Pittsburgh has 3 losses. So the Bills it's right there for them. They are certainly in the hunt to get this 1 seed and track down New England for the division. They play them again. I mean, long way to go. New England's got a pretty cakewalk schedule. The Bills' schedule is a little more difficult with games against, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Tampa, as you mentioned, coming up down the stretch here. But it's all there for the Bills. If they do the right things and kind of meander through these injuries that they've dealt with and continue to, especially on the defensive side of the football, they're going to be right in the hunt for that 1 seed in the division. But it could go the other way too. Like, they could lose to the Patriots in the division and end up being the 5, 6, or 7 seed and fighting for a wild card spot with Kansas City, with Baltimore. Maybe Cincinnati stays in the hunt, although they lost and their defense is absolutely horrific. So it's going to be interesting here.
Let's leave on a high note, Andy. Let's do this. Patriots at the Buccaneers coming up while the Bills are down taking on the Dolphins.
Oh, I didn't realize that was coming up here.
So we could see things totally change coming up in a week. So who knows, right?
Yeah, Tampa's good. Like, they're not perfect by any means, but they're sitting here 6-2. Baker Mayfield's excellent. So, I mean, Tampa's the 2 seed right now in the NFC. They could certainly beat the Patriots. And then you're looking at, hey, now Buffalo's in the driver's seat and they're right back in first place, right? And so, like, we've been through this before. Remember when the year New England was leading and the Bills charged back? The year Miami was leading and really charged back to take first place. So it's a long season. We're not even halfway through yet, which is crazy. We're about halfway through now for the Bills. They're in good shape. And if they can continue to put performances like this, especially on defense, and if the passing game for the Bills offense is working in conjunction with James Cook, they're really just a dangerous team.
All right. And the next time we'll be with you is coming up on Wednesday as the Bills get ready for a trip to South Florida to take on the struggling Dolphins. For Andy Young, I'm Kevin Carroll. As always, everyone. Wait, do you have anything to add, Andy?
No, I don't.
All right.
For once.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.